everybody, it's me again, back with another movie review, but this time it's for a little bit of a different kind of movie. This movie is called Reflection in a Dead Diamond. I saw this a little while ago on Shudder, and it is a 2025 film directed by a male and female duo, and actually they're like a married couple. Hélène Cattet and Bruno Forzani. They're French. They also wrote the film, not just directed it, they wrote it and directed it. And they created two other films that I actually went and watched after I watched this film. A Mirror, which was created in 2009, and Let the Corpses Tan, which was created in 2017. And Reflection in a Dead Diamond is considered a action mystery thriller that kind of pays homage to the old 1960s EuroSpy films. So if you're an American, think of like James Bond films, like sleek action, cool tech devices, and bad guys with sleek outfits and unique kind of thematic gimmicks to how they capture their prey or whatever. That's kind of what this movie, the vibes that it throws out with a twist. What I noticed from this director-writer duo is that they like to take a genre film. They like to turn it up to 11. So they will take a genre film like this EuroSpy genre, and they will amplify it and make it so over the top with special camera angles and lighting and just these real cool, surreal scenes that it becomes more than just this genre. It becomes this genre as a work of art. And I really enjoyed that about all three of their films. This particular film, Reflection in a Dead Diamond, was my favorite of the three, followed closely by their film Let the Corpses Tan, which was a little bit of a different vibe. It was probably more so of it gave like Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino, Western shootout, cops coming to catch some robbers vibes. And then A Mirror, which was the least favorite of my three. It was very, very, very surreal. And I love surreal films. I am a big proponent of surreal films and art house films. But that one leans so heavily surreal and art house that it kind of lost me. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautiful film. I enjoyed it for what it was. As far as, you know, the artistic creativity of it, but it was so far artistic and creative that the storyline got lost in that one for me. Whereas Reflection in a Dead Diamond, the storyline is much more prevalent. And I feel like that's kind of how you can look at the progression of their films. A Mirror was created in 2009, and then Let the Corpses Tan was created in 2017, and it did have a little bit more of a storyline to it. And then now Reflection in a Dead Diamond is 2025, and it, of the three, has the most cohesive and definite storyline, and it shows because the art combined with the story is wonderful, and it really was a great movie. The runtime of this film is about 1 hour and 27 minutes, and it was released and premiered at the 75th Berlin International Film Festival in February of 2025. Okay, so what is this film all about? This film follows John Diman in his older years, who becomes obsessed with his neighbor at this big luxury hotel. And he seems to stir up some haunting memories of his 1960s spy days. But when this woman goes missing, he becomes suspicious and starts to believe his old adversaries are back to get him. And this paranoia sends him into a spiral of flashbacks where you as an audience or a viewer might have difficulty distinguishing what is his real past and what is just fiction. And his main concern is his main adversary, which is a seductress woman named Serpentic, who changes her skin and wears a bodysuit where you can only see her eyes to conceal her identity. And this is driving fear and is seen as the catch that got away from John. This also kind of plays into a seductive trope of sorts, often seen in spy films, where the female lead cannot be tamed and tempts the man until he catches her. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen when John catches Serpentic? Does he catch Serpentic? What's going to happen to John in his older years when, all of these adversaries come back? What's real? What's not? Who knows? We'll find out. Stay tuned. The current IMDb score is a 6.2 out of 10. The Rotten Tomato score is at 84% on the tomato meter. As of right now, there is no popcorn meter rating as I'm filming this. On Letterboxd, it has a 3.6 out of 5 as I'm filming this. And then I have created a new score set up that I am excited to share. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. So I have a new rating scale that I'm going to be using for rating films, and it's kind of like the way a teacher would rate things, or maybe even grade a test, where I have specific things that I'll be looking for and grading them. And as I grade them, I'm going to tally them up and get a total and then give the film a percentage. And we'll see how that percentage, like where it falls in, comparison to things like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or whatever, and how my score maybe stacks up compared to those. So let's look at what I'll be grading. I'll be grading creativity. And on a scale for creativity, this will be things like special effects, lighting, camera work, anything that would give this film a creative edge over other films. And I will say that these two directors, they have nothing lacking in the realm of creativity. These directors know the world of film. They know practical effects. They know cinematography. They know lighting. They know sound design. They know that stuff like the back of their hand. There is no doubt in my mind that artistically this film is oozing with creativity. So for that reason, I give this film a 5 out of 5 for creativity. And then the next thing I'll be rating this film on is originality. And originality is going to be how this film compares to other films like it or similar to it. Is this film comparable to other films? It's kind of ironic to give this film a score because it is initially copying a specific genre of other films. But I do want to give this film a 5 out of 5 for originality, because it came into, fruition by the pure idea of taking that genre and amplifying it and creating something as almost like an ode of love for this type of film. And that within itself is so original. The idea to take something as a director that you enjoy and amplify it in a way that it turns into almost a whole genre by itself. It's very creative and artistic, and just I haven't seen very many other directors do things similar to that, and it could just be my ignorance on that. And if it is, please include other directors that do things like that, because I would love to check them out in the comments below. I'm always looking for helpful feedback. And I would love to check out more directors that I may be unfamiliar with. I'm still learning and growing as I'm watching more films and exploring things, as I'm sure other people are too. So if you have someone that has taken films and genres of films and made their own genre out of that genre somehow, and you'd like to recommend them to me, please do so, because I really would like to check that out. But for originality, I'm going to give these guys a 5 out of 5. Now, as far as my personal score, again, 5 out of 5. This score is more so, would this film scratch a personal itch for me? So there are things that I look for personally in horror movies. And I really enjoy surrealism. I really enjoy artistic skill, creativity, unique camera angles, practical effects, good acting, things like that. And this film has most of those things. The set design is beautiful in this film. The costume design is beautiful. There's a lot of things personally about this film that just really scratch a lot of itches for me. So for that reason, I'm going to give this film a 5 out of 5 again. I really enjoyed this film. The acting, however, which is the next category, I am going to dock 1 point off of. 4 out of 5. Now, Fabio Testi, I mean, I have no complaints in terms of his acting. He is phenomenal. His acting was wonderful. The younger actor that played the younger version of him also did wonderful. My main complaint was the blonde woman, and this could just be, I don't know. There were some things in the film that didn't quite connect for me. The blonde woman was a bit of a not quite land for me at the end of the film. I not that I didn't think she did a great job. She did. I don't know if it was a language barrier for me or if she didn't quite sell the role or the part for me, but there was some disconnect there. I don't know if it was an acting disconnect or what. Maybe it was just her, maybe I just didn't feel like her character portrayed the character that I thought she was supposed to be portraying well. I'm not sure. I loved the character that she was supposed to be portraying throughout the entire film, but there was something off with her. And I hate to say that because she seems lovely, but for that reason, something with that acting from that particular actress just didn't land with me. So I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 for that reason. Storyline, I'm also going to give it a 4 out of 5. And I know that seems kind of harsh because I did say that this film was the better of the 3 that I've seen for storyline, but there are parts of this film that may feel vague or that may leave the audience to interpret things a little bit more than they would have to with other films. There's a lot of symbolism. There's some time jumping back and forth from the past to the current. There's a lot of confusion because you're having to figure out what's real and what's not because the narrator is not a reliable narrator necessarily throughout the film. And that can confuse an audience. It can make you confused about a storyline. Also, I did the second time I watched this film, I've seen this film twice now. The second time I watched this film, I watched it with some friends, and I had a friend who's not particularly into French films, and he struggled because the film does take a while to get to the parts where you're really starting to piece together the storyline. It does kind of move slower in the beginning. And so for that reason, could lose some of your audience if they're getting bored with all of the surrealer parts in the beginning and they're not as into those things like I am. And they're wanting more storyline and getting impatient. I'm going to give the storyline a 4 out of 5 because I feel that the storyline is good, but it takes some patience and it takes some piecing together and some patience with the jumping back and forth with the time and understanding that surrealism and symbolism is going to be a big component of this story. So 5 out of 5 for creativity, 5 out of 5 for originality, 5 out of 5 for my personal score, 4 out of 5 for acting, 4 out of 5 for storyline, gives you an overall score of 23 out of 25, which is a 92% overall. On a 10-point scale, that's an A. So I give this movie a 92% A score. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I really enjoyed these directors. This film is not going to be for everyone. It's not going to be for a recommendation for your mom on a weekend when she's like bumming around at her house and needs a movie recommendation. This is not that type of movie. This is definitely going to be a movie for people who love film, who love the art of film, who love cinematography, who love sound design, who love set design, who love practical effects, and just the idea of film as an art. People like that will enjoy this type of film. People who don't like French film, people who are impatient and really want a storyline to be like cohesive and to the point, or people who just don't really care for all the flair of dramatic or flair of artistic whatever, they're not going to find any value in this film. If you are someone who really appreciates those things, then you're going to like all the little details and all of the little cool, interesting shots. And you're not going to care as much that the film is not some big, heavy storyline, and it's more creative and pretty and unique than it is intricately spelled out. Let's get to my triggers, okay? I like to give triggers in my movie reviews. I have been asked to do this from friends and family. Sometimes movies have some pretty intense scenes involving a variety of topics. Sometimes it involves children, animals, different types of traumas that people might have lived. And for that reason, I like to give trigger warnings in the vaguest way possible. Sometimes if they can't be so vague, then I will tell you prior to giving the triggers. If you're worried about the trigger spoiling something, feel free to skip this portion of my video or pause it and stop and go watch the movie and come back later. If you really do value seeing triggers prior to a movie, then this portion will be beneficial for you. If this portion doesn't matter to you, then you can stop and go watch the movie and come back. Please come back to see my opinions in my spoiler portion of this video, because I love to share my input on what I felt about the movie and what I felt about different deep themes and topics in the movie. So let's talk a little bit about the triggers in this film. There is a lot of female nudity in this film. It's a French film, so not an American film, and so they do not shy away from showing breasts. There's lots of female breasts in this movie, sometimes in a more sexual way, and sometimes in a not sexual way, and just showing a naked woman's body. There is also fully nude bodies of both a female and a male. And there is maybe like slight glimpses of like flaccid genitalia, but it's like slight and you don't really get to see that much because it's a very dark room. A lot of this is because one of the characters in the film, one of her gimmicks is that her skin is removable and she's almost like a snake. She sheds her skin to change her identity. So for that reason, the skin is going to be displayed a lot because of that. There is a lot of heavy themes of women being like kind of like manhandled and assaulted. There is a scene, particularly in the very beginning of the film, a woman could have been potentially assaulted on a boat. It's like one of the first scenes, so I'm not really ruining much for you. Isn't necessarily clearly depicted. It looks mutual in the beginning, but it might have turned not so mutual towards the end of it. We don't know. We just know that there's an injury with diamonds and glass or scratches on the face. So be aware of that. There are also lots of uses of profanity. There's alcohol, smoking, that type of stuff. I mean, it is a rated R movie. There's some spy typical poisoning happening in this film. It is kind of like a spy movie. This very surreal. This movie is very surreal. So you'll often see like a fight scene, and then you'll see violence or something spliced in the middle of it. And then you'll see like a normal scene, and then you'll see like, without warning, another graphic scene spliced into the middle of it. And it can happen suddenly. And so because of that sudden back and forth, if you're someone who can't handle like sudden depictions of violence, then that is something you need to be aware of. There's scenes with shadows. Like one of the scenes in the very beginning is like a typical James Bond and like opening scene where you have like a spy and they're all like silhouette kind of depictions of like a James Bond type character killing various bad guys and with various weapons. And as he does so, he's like stabbing them with swords or shooting them with guns. And as he's doing this, instead of blood coming out, you're seeing diamonds come out because, you know, the theme of the movie. It's not super graphic. It's very stylized. Like I said, they're just shadows on a colored background, and there's diamonds, not blood coming out. But again, violence, need to be aware. There are dead bodies in this film. Oftentimes there are women. A man is beaten to death in this film with a pipe. It is gruesome, and then thrown over a cliff. So I don't know how else to put that other than the way I just said it. There are lots of men who are brutally murdered by a woman in this film, and this scene is particularly brutal because of the ways in which it happens. It's very graphic. There's fingers dug into wounds in this film. There's broken teeth, like out of the mouth. There's a severed head. There's people being thrown off of cliffs multiple times, driven off of cliffs multiple times. There's a lot of underlying themes of like female exploitation and abuse. And you got to think about it like in terms of like Bond films. Like a lot of times you see in like a lot of these like old spy films, women would be like the villain women would be seen as like temptress, or like they'd be manhandled by some of the spies or the bad guys or whatever. And so you have a lot of these women being kind of jostled around by men. And so if you're someone who can't tolerate women that are being like manhandled by a man or slapped or whatever, there's like these weird exploitive situations that you would typically see in a spy film. You need to be aware of that because they play that up quite a bit in this film. I now want to transition to the spoiler portion of my review and share some of my thoughts and opinions on some themes that I noticed in this movie, maybe some of the deeper, kind of heavier emotional topics that might be occurring here, and share my thoughts and get some of your opinions maybe in the comments down below, and maybe we can get a discussion going and hear what people thought of this movie. If you haven't seen the movie, now would be a great time to stop. Go and watch it on Shudder or on YouTube or rent it or wherever you can find it, and then come back, listen to my thoughts and opinions and hear what I have to think about it, and then go in the comments and share your thoughts and opinions, and then maybe we can get a discussion going. And I love hearing feedback and hearing what other people thought of the movies that I saw because I want to hear what other people thought of them too. I think it's fun to have little communities where we can all talk about things we enjoy. So with that being said, let's head on over to the spoiler portion of my review, and let's get started. Okay, so now we are at the spoiler review portion of my video, and I want to share some thoughts right here at the beginning. I think this movie was so utterly cool. It's very art house. It's very surreal. And that's pretty much totally up my alley when it comes to movies. The costume design, the set design, the music, the sound design. There were parts of this movie where there were scenes that were super intense, and you would get like a spike in sound, and it would cause you to have like a reaction, even if you weren't going to have a reaction, which I thought was so clever. Costumes were sleek, they were cool, they were charming. The second time I watched this, my friend Colleen, shout out Colleen. Anyways, so the second time I watched this, my friend Colleen made the comment that there must be some kind of rule that you have to be extremely attractive to be a spy. And I thought that was an interesting comment because, you know, we all kind of accept that spies are naturally cunning and attractive, and that, like, if you're going to be like a villainess or whatever, you also have to be attractive, kind of like a seductress. And I think the directors knew that, obviously, and cast their actors and actresses so well because they deliberately wanted to play up the attractiveness of these characters and make them look sleek and cool and charming and cunning, and kind of give that whole air of like this old school spy. Oh, he's got everything. He's got the car, he's got the women, he's got the cool gadgets, he's got the job, he can travel the world, he's got the diamonds, you know. They wanted to play that up, and I think they did such a good job with that. Set was also very whimsical. I guess it was like a hotel that he was staying at. It was very beautiful. It looked dreamy with the like little ocean by it. And it helped kind of convey that whole delirious, what's going on? This feels like a dream. Is it the past? Is it the present? It kind of felt like you were floating through time, which was great because you were going between the past and the present. And it kind of felt disorienting, which is cool because there were parts where he was out in the hallway of the hotel and there were these cool lines on the carpet. And I mentioned to my friend Max the second time I watched this, shout out to Max, that the carpet was very Kubrick-esque because the lines reminded me of the carpet in The Shining somewhat. And I don't know if that was intentional by these directors, but the lines were very disorienting on the carpet as well. And there were scenes where the camera was kind of playing with that to make you feel disoriented as well, which I thought was very clever. That was all a part of like this dreamy, disoriented going between the past and the present. And uniquely, I think that was also a part of the plan of the directors because they knew where the storyline was going. They knew that they didn't want you to feel like you could trust your narrator. They didn't want you to feel like you could trust Fabio Testi's character. They wanted you to feel like Diamond, or whatever, however you pronounce his last name, was not a reliable narrator. And, you know, was he really a special agent, or was he an actor, or what was going on? What's reality? What's fake? What's real? They wanted to give that weird trying to figure out what's going on feeling. And they really did it with not just the storyline, but with the setting, the costumes. And it was wonderful the way that they did that. The sound and the music could be loud and sudden and harsh. It would heighten your reactions to things. It gives you anxiety in certain situations where you might not otherwise have anxiety. And the whole film in general is kind of like a coming to terms and confronting your own demons movie. This old man throughout this whole film is having to account for his sins of his past. So you've got this actor who is having or reminiscing on his past. You don't know he's an actor in the beginning of the film. You think he's a spy, reminiscing on his past of his spy adventures. By the end, you're like, was he an actor that thought he was really a spy, but actually just played a spy for many years? And it all becomes so disorienting, like I said. And so as you're watching this, you realize that this man is coping with the fact that his character had been replaced, kind of like the old Bond films where one actor plays, you know, Pierce Brosnan played James Bond for a little bit, and then someone else played him for a little bit. And so you've got this actor in this film that is coping with the loss of this role of this spy that he used to be, and he's old and disoriented himself and trying to live out his glory days one last time, I guess. And he's also fearful because he's also disoriented, and he feels like maybe these villains that were after him in the past are real, and maybe they're going to really come back for him. And you also have to realize that he's also coping with the fact that he himself may not be a good person. He may be this male chauvinistic, womanizing, not very nice guy. He may be kind of not very nice to ladies. We don't know. We don't know who this man is, because the whole film we're seeing him through his eyes, and he doesn't know who he is because he may be struggling with dementia. So for that reason, this film is brilliant, because you are struggling the same way the main character is struggling. And it's really fun. The disorienting feeling that the main character's feeling is perfectly displayed through the surrealism and the set design and the costume design and the sound design and everything that these directors and / writers did for this film. Cool framing of certain shots cinematically. There were comics throughout parts of this film, and the frames of the comics paired with like the frames of some of the shots, there would be like half face shots that were like beautiful. It lined up lovely, and it also kind of allowed for them to budget the film a little bit easier, I think, because there were some things that they could do in a comic panel drawn out and animated that they didn't have to do in real life. Like they could do explosions or car chases. And they had a few car chases and things like that in the film in real life, but they were able to do other ones in the comic frames and not have to budget that into the actual film, which I thought was very clever, because to have to budget multiple car chases, multiple explosions, multiple action scenes, and those things out in a film, that gets costly. So to have some of those play out in a comic panel, that's pretty clever, and it fits right in with all the surrealism and all of the unique scenes. Even the one where his spy coworker, is the best way I can put it, is on the pool or the roulette table, and she's like running in her little cool disc dress. Those scenes pair nicely with the comic book scenes, and so it all just goes really nicely together. They did a really good job cohesively blending everything together. So those are just some basic things that I wanted to point out right here at the jump. There's some other things cinematically I want to take note of as well. There are some up close shots of faces in this film that I wanted to mention that I think kind of plays with this whole male versus female dynamic within spy films that needs to be addressed. Okay. A lot of times in this film, there were up close shots of our main character, Diman, but they would be his whole face. You would see his eyes up close, and you would see like his expressions and his emotions and his feelings and his thoughts. And those would all be depicted through his face up close. And that's something these directors do really well, because they also did it in their other film, the Let the Corpses Tan. Because when I saw that film, there were some really beautiful up-close shots of some of their characters in that film. And so in this film, they do that with the main character, but they also do it with the main villain in this film, Serpentique. They do a lot of up-close shots of her, but they only do her eyes. And that's intentional, most definitely, because they want to remove the rest of her face, because by doing so, that makes her become every woman. And I think that was very intentional. Stick with me here, okay? Stick with me. Let me read my notes to you. By zooming in on Serpentique's eyes, but not showing her true face, you remove the connection to who she is, and she becomes the face of every woman of abuse. She becomes the face of every woman who has to protect herself or rebuild herself after a man. That's my notes. Now let's talk about it. So throughout this film, the main villain, Serpentic, is a female character who she has to like shed her skin like a snake to like get away or change her identity or whatever. And she also wears a black latex suit where you can only see her eyes. That is to kind of hide her identity throughout the film. But I found it interesting because this film shows a lot of male on female abuse. It shows a lot of our main character had an intimate relationship with a woman on a boat at the beginning of the film, which I mentioned earlier in the trigger portion of this review. And he pushed her face down on diamonds, and she had a lot of like broken diamonds and glass in her face. And then there was a scene where he was trying to find Serpentic, and he was abusing another woman and like cut her and slapped her. And he's being very aggressive and rough with women. And that's not uncommon for spy films when you have a villain that is a female. And I think that was intentional in this movie. I think they wanted to amp that up a little bit and make a statement on it. And I think they even more so wanted to make a statement on it by making the main villain a girl who sheds her skin, because by doing so, they can change her to be any woman. She can be any woman. She can look like any woman. And then it takes it from being just one specific woman that's getting beaten up by all these men or all these people trying to catch her. And it turns into being a lot of different women getting beat up by all these men trying to catch her. So I thought that was an interesting point that this movie was touching on. I don't know if it was necessarily intentional. I feel like it might be. I mean, it felt pretty intentional to me, but that's really for the directors to speak on. And I did not do research to see if they've spoken on whether or not this movie was supposed to have any kind of deep meaning on how there may be some toxic masculinity within spy films. But I think this movie does highlight that for sure. I think there is a part at the end where we see John, our main character, going to meet the blonde woman who one would assume was the actress that played Serpentic. And he is rough with her then as well. He chases her and leads her to her demise as well. And we see he's just this violent man. Then he imagines Serpentic at the very end of the film coming for him, as revenge. And he asks her, and I wrote this down, "Why didn't you come sooner?" And she responds, "My dream was chaos, and in the end, you, my worst nightmare, John, fighting for the good of humanity, was way better than me at destroying the world." And then she takes off her mask, she kisses him, poisons him, and then they crash into the ocean. So she basically calls him her worst nightmare and says that by saying that him fighting for the good of humanity was better than her destroying the world. So this film also depicts how sometimes in spy films, or at least I feel like this film depicts this, these spy films can often fetishize sexual pleasure with violence, or male-dominated films can fetishize sexual pleasure with violence. So characters like James Bond or John in this film might be particularly aggressive with women or quick to be violent with women, but then they also see these women as, sexy in their little tight latex suits, and they're like, please kiss me, please let me see your face. There's all this sexual tension. And the sexualization of these women being like this temptress while also wanting to hurt these women, it's a weird combination of like violence and sex combined. And it's interesting how Hollywood has chosen in male-dominated films to fetishize violence with women and make that connection of like women being seductive and violence towards women being seductive. It's a weird combination, and it's definitely prevalent in spy films, especially. So there are also themes going on in this film about spy actors aging out of their roles. Like I said before, the main character, he goes and he sees a film in the theater within this movie, and he sees that he's been replaced by a younger actor. He sees the younger actor on a movie poster, quite literally in the film. He figuratively rips the skin off his face, and it's like a younger dude's face, and then his older face is underneath it. And there's just a lot of like symbolism in this film about him being replaced. There's also the whole final curtain call at the end of the movie where it's like his face and the word Finn over it. Kind of like, this is your final curtain call. You're done, So there's just a lot of figurative and literal depictions in the film of like spy film actors aging out of their roles and being replaced, which puts a lot of pressure on male actors, I think, in these roles because they want to be as young and as attractive, as my friend Colleen said, as possible, and have this appeal. And then once it's gone, they've been replaced and they're no longer useful. So then who are they? What is their identity? Are they a spy? Are they an actor? Who are they? And so that within itself leads to some complicated identity problems. This film pays homage to spy films, but it also dissects them. It dissects, the sexual combination with violence. It dissects the actors aging out of their roles and what is their identity if they've always played this one type of character. And it all creates this large spectacle out of it with wonderful showmanship. So another theme with this whole seductress who got away is that when she's finally caught at the end of the film, she is killed. That's the problem. Like when Serpentine is finally caught at the end of the film, spoiler alert, she's killed. So in these spy films, oftentimes when this seductress is caught, there's an act of violence. She's either hurt or slapped or abused or killed. And in this case, she's killed. She's ran off the road and into the ocean and killed. And that happens quite a bit in films. Going back to the theme of John having a hard time accepting this idea that he's been replaced with a newer, younger model to play this role of the spy, you can kind of see that he's having a hard time embracing this idea, and he wants to live in the past. So he keeps reflecting back on the past and replaying his old memories. He refuses to let go of the fact that he is no longer the spy and someone else is now the spy. So now he is living with the ghosts of his past. He's living in the past. He's no longer living in the future where someone else is that character. He is still living as that character. He is still carrying around his gadgets and pretending to be that character because he cannot let go of the fact that he is no longer that person. And as he's trying to figure out the truth of his past and the disappearance of his neighbor, he realizes that he's chasing this man that he used to be and not a villain after all. He's not actually really chasing Serpentine. He's chasing who he used to be. And I think when he realizes, I'm chasing who I used to be and not, this villain, this seductress character, it's too much. It's too much to cope with. And he would rather live in this false reality of, no, I'm actually a spy. The diamonds are real. They're not fake, like he was told. And he'd rather tell himself, I'm actually a spy, and she's actually real. Serpentic is real, and here she is, and she's going to give me a kiss, and I'm going to ask her, why didn't you come sooner? And that's what he does. And she kisses him and poisons him, and he drives himself off a cliff and kills himself at the end of the movie because he cannot cope with the idea that he is not the spy and that he has been replaced. And that the things that he has done throughout the movie are actually the actions of a man who was just an actor, who cannot cope with the fact that his old life is gone and that he is not this cunning, daring spy, but actually a sad, washed-up actor that has been replaced. That's the themes of this movie in a very real sense. And it's heavy. It's heavy for our actor, or our main character, John. It's sad for the main character, Serpentic, because you see the struggles of women in male-dominated cinema and how they're portrayed and how they're connected to violence. And you see how this male-dominated toxic masculinity hurts both the men as they age out and no longer become attractive and cunning and physically athletic and, all these things that are seen as like young and successful and whatever. And you see him become less useful, and you see the women become objects of desire and objects of violence. And it's really an eye-opening film for analyzing a male-dominated film, but also it's beautifully shot and creative and unique, and a really cool way to like amplify spy film to like the nth degree, or to 11, turn it up to 11. So I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was very creative, very well thought out. I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought it had many unique aspects to it that a lot of other films don't. And for that reason, that's why I scored it so high. I would encourage you to go watch it. I would encourage you to come back and let me know what you thought. I would encourage you to go watch their other films as well. They're a lot more sexual than this one, so be prepared for that. But, they're great watches, and this couple has a lot of really cool things in store, I think, for the future, and I'm excited to see more of their work. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned because I'll be reviewing The Substance next. I have that one already being filmed as we speak. I know that's an older film, but I love that movie and I love that director, and I want to get that review on my channel as soon as possible. I will be going back and reviewing some films that I have reviewed via written form in the past, but I want to get a video form review of those on my channel. And yeah, so I look forward to reviewing some older films for you guys and sharing my thoughts on those. So stay tuned. But this is all for now. Enjoy!